our guest speaker today. Sandra holds a master's degree in education in teaching English as a second language. She is a senior instructor at the American University of Kuwait, teaching both English and education courses. An educator for 30 years, Sandra has 25 years of experience in working with people with learning difficulties. So we'd like to say big welcome and clap, clap, clap to our guest speaker, and the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope that everybody will walk away from this workshop with something that is going to help them, or several things, inshallah, that will help them. These are techniques that have a lot of research behind them, and I personally have been using them for many years, and they are so helpful. This is really, during this time of COVID, and this online teaching, it can be extremely stressful to all of these things, with surrounded by the pandemic and the extra stress of having to shift our work and studying online. It has put many people under enormous amounts of stress, and that's why this workshop is extra important. So let's look at negative thoughts. We're talking not thoughts that you consciously think about. These are thoughts that automatically come to you. Things like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail. Oh, I messed up. Or these kinds of things. And it starts a vicious cycle. This starts with a negative thought, and it creates doubts and worries in your mind. And then it produces unpleasant feelings in your body and your emotions, which releases chemicals, stress chemicals, into your bloodstream, and that makes you feel more stressed and anxious and depressed. And then that in turn affects what you do, and that also in turn demotivates you, and it actually can confirm your failure, which then leads to more negative thoughts. So this whole cycle just continues and continues and continues unless you can actually break the cycle and stop it. And today I'm going to talk about a way that I'm going to talk about two methods. The first one is going to help you stop immediately that cycle. And the second one is, okay, now I've stopped it temporarily so that I can think a little better. What can I do about it? And it's a more long-term method for dealing with it. Okay, so I think we've all felt like this at one point in time or another, where you felt like smoke really was coming out of your ears. When we are faced with this barrage of stress hormones, it actually has a physical effect on our bodies and can lead to all kinds of diseases, depression, obesity, and many, many more. So we have to be very careful about what we think. And that's what we're here for, because every single thought that you have, whether it's negative or it's positive or neutral, it releases a chemical into the brain, okay? And when you have negative thoughts, they decrease the activity in our frontal lobe and in our temporal lobe. And these are two extremely important areas of the brain. The frontal lobe is dealing with our executive functions, thinking, planning, organizing, problem solving, controlling our emotions and behavior, and our personality. So if we don't have enough activity in here, we're not going to be able to do those things well at all. And also it decreases the activity in the temporal lobe, which has to do with our memory, our understanding, and language. Haven't you ever been in a situation where you were so stressed or so upset about something that you couldn't even seem to formulate the words to tell somebody about it, it's because of this issue right here in the temporal lobe. That low activity there in the temporal lobe is creating that difficulty. It's not just that you're so upset, it's that these stress hormones are actually having a physical effect on your brain and a physical effect on your body. So how can we break this cycle? First of all, it's something so simple that most people don't think about it, but there's a lot of research behind it. And that is positive and negative posture. So did you know that your posture could have an incredible effect on your emotions? It can. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So a negative posture, you can see the guy at the computer, and we all find ourselves doing it, right? We're slumped over. It's like, oh my God, it's been hours and hours. And our chin goes down and our shoulders come forward and our mouth is either flat or it's frowning. This posture actually releases stress hormones into your bloodstream by itself. So even if when you were already tired or stressed when you went into that posture, the longer you stay there, the worse it's going to get. The less you'll be able to focus, the less you'll be able to function. On the opposite side is the positive posture. Now, of course, you don't have to sit into a yoga pose. You can just sit at your desk with your shoulders back and your chin up and put a smile on your face. The bigger the smile, the better. This posture releases positive endorphins and positive chemicals and hormones into your bloodstream that actually lifts your mood, helps you to focus better. Okay, so we're going to try it now. I want to do a little experiment. I want you all to close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to think of your happiest experience that you can remember. Live it. Think about it. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What are the emotions that are there? What does it look like? Live that experience. Let that smile cover your face. Okay? Now, hold that thought. Try to hold that happy thought as long as you can. Now I want you to slump your shoulders forward. Put your chin down and remove the smile from your face. What happened? Were you able to maintain that happy thought? 90% of the time, that happy thought has disappeared. Because suddenly and so instantly, those hormones are surging through your bloodstream. Now, let's do the opposite. I want you to imagine a very sad experience. Close your eyes again. Live it again. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Allow yourself to be in that moment, very sad, very difficult. Got it? Now, put your shoulders back, put your chin up, and put a great big smile on your face, and hold it. What happened? It was difficult to maintain that sad thought. Again, because these postures have an immediate effect on our mind and our bodies. So this is the way to immediately break the cycle. If you catch yourself having these negative thoughts and you just feel overwhelmed by them, immediately put yourself into a positive posture and smile. Even if you're going like this because you don't feel like you're really smiling, right? You're not happy, and pretty soon it seems so funny that you're gonna either start laughing or smiling for real. Now, we have stopped the cycle, but it's only temporary. It's only as long as you are like that. In order to thoroughly deal with these automatic negative thoughts, we need to kill those ants. Automatic negative thoughts stands for ANT, stands for automatic negative thoughts. And Dr. Daniel Amen is the one who coined the phrase automatic negative thoughts and killing ants in his book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. And he talks about 9 different types of ants that he recognized. By the way, he is a very famous neuropsychologist and is famous for brain imagery studies. So he can see actually how, and that's how he developed these things. He could see how the brain was actually being affected by our automatic negative thoughts. So we're going to talk about the 9 different types of ants because it's important that we be able to recognize the ants. The first one is called all or nothing ants. That's when you're thinking that things are all good or all bad, usually all bad. And generally it's like narrowing people or things into a very small box, and anybody who's outside of that box or different, we demonize those people. And it uses words like always, all the time, never, every time. You can imagine the politics in my country, in the United States, with Donald Trump and everybody, all of that mess. There was so much of this all or nothing going on that it was unbelievable. It's basically your black and white thinking. So, for example, if you miss a day at work, you miss a day of working out at the gym, okay? And you start thinking, oh my God, I missed the day. That's it. My routine is ruined. I'm a failure. It's horrible. Okay, it's not the end of the world, right? It's just one slip up, and you need to stay focused on the fact that you just need to continue, even though you messed up. It was not entirely messed up. And we're going to talk more after I've introduced the different types of ants. We're going to talk more about how to deal with them. Okay, so the second type of ant is the always ant, or the catastrophizing ant. So this is when you think in words that overgeneralize things such as always, never, every time, or everyone. I will never lose weight. Boy, have I had that thought. I've always had a sweet tooth. I will never be able to stop eating chocolate. This kind of thinking makes you feel that that's it, you're doomed. There's nothing you can do, and you're stuck with the situation that you're in right now. Okay? There's no way you can eat healthy. You have no control over your actions or behavior, and then you basically feel like a victim. Okay? So we want to watch out for these ants. The third kind of ant is called just the bad ant. This is where you are going through a day and everything is fine in your day except for one thing. This one bad thing happened, and you focus on that one bad thing and you escalate that and exclude everything else that was positive that happened that day. And then you play that bad experience over and over and over and over again in your mind. This focusing on the negative makes you more inclined to actually give up trying. So imagine if you had a conversation with your boss. The whole day was great, but just this one conversation, you said something and you thought later, oh my God, I never should have said that. I'm going to be fired. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I said something against his idea in the meeting, right? And then you just keep replaying and replaying and replaying and replaying this in your mind. The problem is, or even if your boss said something to you that you felt was insulting or negative about you, right? So your boss did something once, okay, that upset you and created that negative chemical entering your bloodstream. But you are actually replaying that over and over and over and over and over again in your mind, maybe for days or weeks. So you now are causing all of those negative chemicals to come to you. So what that person did to you was one thing, but what you are doing to yourself, it's even stronger. So we have to really be careful with these. Number 4 is thinking with your feelings, ants. So basically it's whatever you feel, you decide that has to be true. I feel like that's the way it is, so that's it. Okay? I feel like my skin is never going to clear up. These thoughts occur when you have a feeling about something, and so you assume that it is correct. So you never question it. Okay? And you have to be careful because feelings can lie too. All right. This one is very, very common. It's called guilt-beating ants. Words you catch yourself saying, oh, I should have done this. I could have, I ought to, I have to. All right. When you are thinking like this, you are, guilt it's not a very good motivator. You want to try, instead of saying, for example, I should go see my grandmother, then it makes it an obligation, not something that you enjoy doing. You can turn that around and say, I want to spend time with my grandmother, and then it changes how you feel about it. But by saying I should, now you're giving it a negative feeling, okay? And that negative feeling then is associated with your grandmother and causes you to want to go less. Number 6 is label ants. Okay, this is where you call yourself or somebody else a derogatory name. It reduces our ability to actually see situations or people clearly. This diminishes our ability to get a full picture of the situation or the person that we're talking about. If we look at somebody, for example, and this kid has long purple hair, and immediately we're like, oh my God, these people, right? This is a label, okay? It's a label that is narrowing that person's into this little tiny box. And 99.9% of the time, people aren't like that. We're very complex creatures. And situations are also quite complex. So you want to try to avoid the labeling ants. Now, the last 3 are what I call red ants because they are nasty and they are the strongest of the ants and cause the biggest problems. So number 7 is fortune-telling ants. This is where we predict the worst in future situations, and we have no evidence that it's going to be that way. It's basically, this is an ant of most people who are dealing with panic disorder. They are masterful at predicting the worst in a situation, even though they have no evidence. For example, let's say that a student has studied hard all semester long, and they continue to study, but they have these fortune-telling ants. I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fail. Okay, there's no evidence for that. They've been working hard. But if they get it stuck in their mind hard enough, if they get it stuck in their mind long enough, they may actually fail because of their causes of that lack of confidence. Starts that negative cycle again. Number 8 is mind reading ants. This is where you believe that you know what somebody else is thinking without that person actually telling you. Okay, you're sitting in your office meeting, and one of your colleagues or your boss looks over at you and looks back, and you think, oh my God, they looked at me. They're, you know, I'm sure they're thinking, you know, my outfit isn't good, or they're thinking about what I did wrong, or blah, 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 blah. Okay, you don't know. We don't have that ability to actually read somebody's mind. And so we want to stop this ant, because the more often than not, we get it wrong. And it leads to all kinds of misunderstandings and confusion, and a lot of troubles in relationships happen because of this. Marriages split up because of these things. All right, the last ant I'm going to talk about is the last red ant is the blame ant. This is where you are blaming someone else or something else for the problems in your life, and basically you're just playing the victim. It's not my fault that I'm late. The bus left me. It's the bus's fault. Okay? It's not my fault that I was late in getting there so that I could get on, you know, be on the bus on time. All right? And the problem is that if you continue with the blame ants and you play the victim, you never end up recognizing your own. Excuse me. Hello, somebody's unmuted. Thank you so much. All right. So basically, when we take away this personal responsibility for things, you have no way to change a problem, because in order to change a problem, we actually have to recognize that it exists. And if your sole idea is blaming everything, blaming the country, blaming the money, blaming your partner, blaming whoever, then you are never responsible, and you never have the ability to change and improve yourself. This is a really, really bad one. That's why I saved it for last. So how do you become your own anteater and get rid of these ants? Dr. Amen has a 4-step method of killing the ants. The first step is when you have to start recognizing that you're having these thoughts. Okay, just like anything else, if you can't recognize that they are infecting you, you are not going to be able to do anything about them. So you need to write it down. You can do it on your mobile. You can have a little notebook like this one. It's up to you how you want to do it, but you need to write down the negative thoughts that you are having. It's a process, and you have to start looking at these negative thoughts that are going through your brain. What are they? And the next step is to determine which type of ant is infesting your mind. Which one of these 9 ants is it? Am I dealing with some of the red ants? I'm going to have to be particularly stringent in working on these, and it may take longer to get rid of them than the other 6 ants. So you write it down, then determine what kind of ant it is, and then the next step is to challenge that ant to kill it. How do we challenge an ant? First of all, you want to ask yourself, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? Because sometimes if we've been hearing these things in our mind over and over and over again, we'll say, yeah, it's true. But can I absolutely know that it's true? If you really think about it, maybe not. How do I react when I think this thought? And who would I be without that thought? Or how would I feel if I didn't have that thought? Wow. This last one in particular, I put it in green because I just love it. How would I feel if I didn't have that negative thought? it's really powerful. I would probably feel great. Now, the other thing that we need to do, we're on to step 4, is to recognize the trigger, because sometimes things trigger these automatic negative thoughts. For example, your boss gives you a new task to do, and you've already got a lot to do. And your aunt is, I've never done this before, I can't do this. You know, maybe you might even say, I'm not going to do it. Right? A lot of people are feeling overwhelmed currently with having to learn all of these technology skills by moving online, that they just, something else that's new, forget it. I just can't deal with it. Now, you know that it's there. You know what's triggering it. Now we're going to prepare for the next time that that negative thought comes by creating the opposite positive statement. So we could change that around and say, this is a new learning opportunity. The only failure is not trying. Okay, so now you're prepared for when that type of aunt comes up again. Or, I made a mistake at work. Oh my God, I'm probably going to be fired. Everyone will think I'm an idiot. We've all had these thoughts at some point in time or another. But let's flip it around. Mistakes happen to everybody. I'm going to work through this like I always do. So, to review the 4-step method of killing ants, write down when you have a negative thought. Determine what type of ant is infesting your mind. Challenge that ant to kill it. And lastly, replace that ant with its opposite positive thought to turn your thinking around. Most importantly is absolutely don't believe everything that you think. And here are my references. I can give Faisal the PowerPoint. I moved through it so that we could have our discussion without
Okay, sure.
the...
Sure, I will share it. Since you said,
Okay.
I will share it by emails.
Wonderful. Okay. So I am not sure exactly how I stop sharing here.
Just go up and click on stop sharing.
Yeah, it's not there. Okay. All right. All right, good. It's not sharing anymore, correct?
Yeah, I think that you can see the chat box, right?
Yes, I can now.
Okay.
Okay, so I know you must have a lot of questions because there's a lot of information that's involved in this. What can I help to clarify for you?
I want to tell you that we have over 200
MashaAllah.
I'm from maybe over 50 countries. Wow, that's amazing, really.
Really amazing. Fantastic.
Okay.
You know what this tells you? It tells you how many people are struggling with this problem. Really. Because it's such a prevalent problem, especially these days. I mean, you think about it, we are surrounded by negativity. The news, you know, their whole business is negativity. It's so unusual that we have positive news. And so when we you know, try to find out what's happening in the world, then it's just, you know, it sometimes becomes extremely overwhelming. So do you have questions?
I think, okay, before we start questions, you can write, you can open your mic. So I'm going to, after a couple of minutes, I'm
I
going to
saw
share the
somebody has
attendance.
a question.
Okay, I'm going to share the attendance and feedback link, and I'm sure that you will receive your certificate and the PowerPoint, even the recording in 6 business days. And please, if
Wonderful.
you have questions, you can open your mic. I think there is a question there.
Okay.
Can you see the
Yes,
question?
I see one here. So by Ariel, how to deal with colleagues who thought they were superior to you. What? Wait, come back. Who thought, it disappeared. I'm trying to get back. Okay. Who thought they were superior to you, is being silent instead of confronting them the best solution? This is a really difficult one. I have, of course, dealt with people like this many times in my life, and many times in my 30+ years as an educator. And it really depends on who the person is and what is your position in relation to that person. For example, if it's your boss, you may have a difficult time, right? However, the important thing to remember is that you cannot change their behavior. The only thing you can change is your own behavior and your own thoughts. So it may be that we are mind reading and thinking that that person feels that they can do everything better than you. We don't know that, right? How do you know that? Have they told you that? Maybe they did. If they did, that's a different story, right? That's no longer mind reading. But if you are just assuming that, and you got to be careful with assuming, right? That mind reading can get you into a lot of trouble. So you may want to set an appointment with your boss, depending on your boss, right? I would personally set up an appointment and say, you know, I'm trying to understand what it is that I need to do because I feel like you don't appreciate the work that I do, right? This could lead to better understanding, but also the whole thing is be very careful. Relationships, like I said, can really be destroyed by this idea of mind reading. Okay, I see another. Can you see, Faisal, who has their hands up? Okay.
I think
Umama has her hand up, and somebody else, one other person.
Jabez and Majdi. Okay, we can. Let me,
Go ahead and just call. Oh, I see. They're down at the bottom.
Can you see the hands?
I can now, but okay. So, Mr. Jabez, go ahead. Mr. Jabez, do you have a question?
I think maybe he has problem with mic. Okay, let's go to Majdi. Magdi.
Okay, Magdi, go ahead. Majdi.
Okay.
Are they able to unmute themselves?
Let me. Okay, yeah.
They probably cannot unmute themselves because they're.
Yeah, it's okay now.
All right, I'm Jabez. Good afternoon, and thank you for the wonderful presentation.
You're very welcome.
My question is all about ant number 7, which is the first red ant, which is about fortune telling. It's mostly relevant to the students who work hard, study all the time, the example that you have given. And finally, they have this thing in their mind that they repeatedly say to themselves that they're going to fail in the exam, or they're not going to do well, or they're going to mess it up, and so on. Now, in reality, they worked hard all through the semester or the year. Now, is that not going to help them to pass the test?
Yes,
Or
it
exam?
can.
And once that happens and they try to recollect what has happened and what they thought, they automatically can come out of it, right? So, but you're saying that the feeling inside about being failed all the time or failing in the exam, having it all the time in their mind, would dominate even their hard work. Is this, to what extent is this going to
I
be
didn't
true?
say it would dominate. I said it can dominate. You have to be careful because some people, you're right, they will get past it. Their constant studying will get them through. But there are other students and people. I just gave an example of a student.
Yes.
But there are other people who become so demotivated by their own negative thoughts that it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So they actually demotivate themselves so much that they lose confidence in themselves, right? And when you lose confidence in yourself, then you are like, no, I know this answer. No, is that the right answer? Maybe I don't know that answer. Maybe it's this other one. Oh no, maybe it could be that one. Do you see? This is where it has an effect on them, okay, with a student, and you begin questioning yourself. But again, it depends on the individual. It doesn't necessarily always take over, but it can. And if it happens often enough, right? Because the more that you do this, the worse it becomes. And the more of an effect it plays on your mind and everything that you do. Because it definitely has an effect on and has consequences that come out of that, right? And then those things fulfill and confirm your thoughts. Those negative thoughts, yeah, see, I knew I was going to fail. I'm not fail. Doesn't matter what I can do. I always fail, right? And it's not necessarily only related to studying. It's about everything. Could be anything. Maybe you tried to lose weight and over 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 again, and every single time, maybe you were shortly successful, and then it came right back, and so you believe in your mind that there's nothing you can do. I'm going to fail, and so very often what happens is those people just stop trying, right? And because in their mind, I'm going to fail anyway. What's the point, right? This is what can happen. Can happen, not always, right? Okay. How do you deal with people? Thank you. Another question.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I want to ask two questions. How can high mental ability reduce negative automotive thoughts? This is number one. The question two, you cited the word hormone. Is hormone more effective, has a bad effect on a boy or a girl?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. I have not looked into those studies about if it's affecting females or males more. And honestly, I think it would depend on the topic, right? Because men are focused on different things than women are, but these same types, that's why they're very general. And Dr. Amen does not distinguish between the genders in terms of these ants. So these are ants that happen to everybody, everywhere in the world, right? In whatever language you're in whatever gender you are, these can happen to you. But it's up to you as an individual to learn how to recognize them and stop them, right? It takes time. When you're first starting, the whole idea of writing down these negative thoughts, and it's a little bit time consuming, right? When you start any new process, it takes more time. But as you get used to it, you will find that you recognize them far more quickly, and you've pretty much gone through the gamut. After a couple of weeks of doing it, you recognize, oh, this is another one of those thoughts coming back, right? And, pardon me? Okay, I don't think he's. All right. Okay. So anyway, after you get used to the process, this 4-step process, it becomes easier and faster and even more effective. But then there may be times in your life, for example, when you're going through very difficult times. For myself, it was, just about a year and a half ago when my mother passed away. And that, I mean, this is something that's an extremely difficult time, or you may be dealing with a very bad problem in your life. Then these ants start to multiply, right? And they start coming back. So pull that notebook back out. Start going back to recording them and challenging them on a regular basis until you start feeling like you can handle things again. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Do we have another question? Yusra.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, this is not a question, but I just want to thank you very much for raising the issue. And I'm a teacher from Tunisia, and actually I've integrated yoga into my teaching practice for the same reason you mentioned here. So yoga for myself and yoga for my students since 2016. And as something really positive that I like to mention, everyone should take good care of oneself because we can't pour out from an empty cup. That's it. And thank you very much.
Oh, definitely. Thank you. You're so true. Even mindfulness. Yoga uses mindfulness. Even recognizing your ants and, figuring out what they are, it requires a form of mindfulness, any kind of prayer. Mindfulness helps you so much. These are just 2 strategies that I talked about, but there are many, many strategies that can help you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Another question? Do we still have time for some?
Yeah, Yusra.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. These ants, if they are not within us, but they are given by our beloved to us constantly, then how to get rid of it?
Okay. First of all, what we're talking about with automatic negative thoughts, they are your own thoughts. All right? If, however, you are being verbally abused, for example, that's what it sounds like you're talking about, that somebody is constantly telling you these negative things, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Means if I am doing anything, means if it is worth, means the whole world is praising, but the beloveds are constantly, means if it is very right, very positive, but still they will take out some of the other mistakes from it and make me feel that I'm fit for nothing.
Okay, but I want you to focus. Now, other people can do everything that they want or anything that they want. We can't actually control that. We can't change their behavior. What we can do is change our behavior, right? We can do something about it. we can either pull ourselves out of that situation, make a complaint about them. We can change how we think about it, right? You're in a very difficult situation. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy at all to be in that kind of environment. And at some point in time, you do want to ask yourself, how important is it for me to stay in this environment? Do I have to stay here, or do I have other options? Because if you start to believe these negative things that other people are telling you, and you allow yourself to adopt those negative things as your own, then that becomes a big problem, right? And so you have to work on those automatic negative thoughts. Remind yourself that you cannot control other people. You can only control yourself. Work on yourself. And if it's not enough, then I would highly encourage you to do what you can to remove yourself from that situation if possible. But you might find that often when we change the way that we are thinking about it, it shows and it has an effect on the person who is doing that abuse. Okay? And they start to realize that the abuse that they are using is not having the effect on you that it used to have. And usually they start to back off, because they often do it because they want to hurt you, they want to make you feel bad. But if you're not feeling, you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, and you keep going, right? Then do you see, it's not easy. It's not easy, but if you can get yourself to that point, it may change their behavior. By changing your behavior, you may change their behavior, but don't count on it. Focus on yourself.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
God bless.
I already shared the feedback form in the chat box, please. And don't worry, we'll share the PowerPoint, the slides, the recording, and the certificate of appreciation after 6 or within 6 business days after you fill from the feedback form. Okay. Okay, we have hands up. Raised. Okay.
Majdi wrote. Hang on, Majdi wrote a question. He said, "How to help children avoid ants?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There is.
Same thing. You have to make it simpler for them, but maybe you want to use an image, right? It's this kind of an ant, and that's one of the reasons Dr. Amen used the analogy of the ants, because everybody can relate to it. Ants are everywhere in the world, right? We've all seen ants, and a single ant by itself is not a big problem, but when they swarm and there's so many of them and they take over, that's where the problem becomes. And I think children can really understand this, but you have to keep it simple, right? You're not going to go into all of the things about, the hormones and the reactions and, the deep thoughts, but you can help them by talking them through it, right? And even when they're little, you can say, you seem to be really upset, right? Yes, I'm upset. Okay, tell me what you're thinking, right? And then they can tell you, because they don't even, the smaller they are, the harder it is for them to recognize this. And you can walk them through this process, okay? But it takes consistency with it and doing it over a period of time, a fairly long period of time, for the children to be able to pick up that process on their own. And mashallah, I wish I had known about this when my children were little, that I could have used it with them. because it's something that is a very powerful tool for children to have. That would be my recommendation. Okay.
We still have 10 minutes, guys, and 3 hands raised up here.
Yes, we have lots of hands raised. Who else has their hand raised?
Ibandra?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's
yeah,
me.
yes.
So are you hearing me, sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can.
So thank you for the presentation, ma'am, first of all, and very good presentation session. It was for, as I'm a teacher from Nepal. So I would like to request two things here. First, can you get the video recording of the session, first of all?
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
He said it would be available in 6 working days.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And next thing, I hope and I wish to have some seminars later on also in future also. So it was very good as a teacher to apply in our home and the school as well. So it was very good for our personal development as well. Thank you very much for the session, ma'am.
You are very welcome. It would be my pleasure.
Thank you.
There's a comment in by Endang that says, I have a friend who feels he doesn't have any abilities, even though he has the ability to do anything. So all this time, he always thinks like that and doesn't dare to do anything. I try to motivate him, but he still thinks negatively about himself. What can I do to help my friend? Teach him how to deal with the ants. That's what you can do. He's got an ant infestation, and he may be dealing with trauma. We don't even know, right? Some people, doing these things on your own is not enough. It depends what kinds of things you went through that, or maybe are currently going through. Maybe you need to seek professional help as well. All right. Okay. Do we have another hand raised?
Yeah, I think you have 2.
Okay, go ahead and choose somebody.
So how can you get the recordings, ma'am? How can you get?
We'll share it by email. We share it by email. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I don't know, Silimi, but can you hear us? Yeah, I think. Can you hear us, Silimi? Can you see the hands raised, Sandy?
I can only see a few, but I found another question in the chat. Dr. Ariel again is asking a question. She said, does an ant significantly link to someone's culture? There are definitely some correlations to culture. There are cultures who are more prone to guilt beating, and there are more cultures that are prone to catastrophizing. But it's more like, it's more prevalent there, but it doesn't mean that it's only in their culture. No, these things are everywhere. You just have to be aware, right? Again, once you are aware of these things, then it becomes so much easier to deal with it. If you can recognize that these things are part of your culture, and recognize there are some beautiful things about every single culture, and then there are not some great things about every single culture, right? So you think about it that way and recognize, okay, I realize that this is part of my culture, but I don't have to accept that this is true, right? It's not easy, but it can be done. Okay.
Ujwala, you can open your mic.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes, hello. Hello, I'm Ujwala from India.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, ma'am, for this informative webinar. I would like to say thanks a lot many a times because in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, our webinar is like filling us with tremendous positivity.
Wonderful.
Am I audible properly, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. And one more few of my views I would like to share with you. That is, we are trying to overcome our problems and go ahead in life because the entire world is facing a lot of negativity because of this COVID-19 and all. And main sufferers, according to me, I'm working as a teacher since 17 years, and right now I'm working as a trainer too. So, according to me, I feel that main sufferers are our children, our beloved students, because they're locked up in our home and they have to study and they have to see the teacher in front of what we can say like a stars in a mobile, and they are conversing with them, and they're adjusting too much to gain a knowledge through screens.
Yeah, it's really hard. My youngest son is doing online learning, and of course, my 100 students are dealing with it. I actually spend a good time each week just giving them an opportunity to talk, and it's hard. It's not always possible given the curriculum that you need to get across. But you can do it in all kinds of ways. Like I've used forums, some people use Padlet, Flipgrid. I had my students this semester create an avatar of themselves and introduce themselves because I thought, gosh, these students are online, they've never met each other, and it's so important, their socializing and their connection. And for me also, I wanted to be able to know them. Right. And so my plan is, we've just started, we just finished our 3rd week of classes here at AUK because, our whole schedule got off with COVID. But my plan is to then bring those things up more and more. And I'm allowing them to they can choose their avatar that they want as their screen profile. So if they're really not doing well, they can have an avatar that's going, whatever it is, so that I know immediately that this student is having a bad day, right? If they were in my class, I would recognize that something was not going right with this student, right? And I might pull them aside and talk to them, but over the screen, it's very difficult. And often they don't even have their cameras on. Yes. But again, connecting with them is super important. And sometimes just letting them know that you're there and that you care and, that you're human too, right? It has a really profound effect. I've had so many comments from my students this semester already about it. We shared similarities and stuff. All right. Do we have time for any more questions, or we're done, Faisal?
Yeah, we still.
Thank you, ma'am.
2 minutes.
You're very welcome. Okay, maybe another question or two.
Can you see any in the chat box?
I'm looking. Okay.
I think there is a hand raised. Anas.
Hannah. Okay, go ahead. Unmute yourself and ask away.
Anas Noor.
Oh, Anas?
Anas, yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we wish more of these sessions should be held on such relevant topics which bring about a sense of positivity in our life. I'm I am currently staying in India. I've been associated with the profession of teaching, but right now, whatever situation is prevailing, like I mean, all 4 people or all 5 people in the house, they are studying on different devices, and actually everyone is having their own screen. And actually, it's like, I mean, even though we are staying under one roof, most of the time we are hooked to our own screens, and somebody is learning something, somebody is just playing the games, and there is an immense sense of loneliness out here. So how to cope up with that is also a big question.
Wallahi, I completely understand this. My suggestion to you as a parent would be to set aside a specific time for your family where it's no devices time, whether it's your meal time or even if it's only once a week, right? Even if you can only manage it on, for example, a Thursday evening or Friday evening, depending on where you are in the world. And just let them know you're on the screen all the time and I want to be able to connect with you too, right? And you can even, I mean, for me, it's hard. I mean, there is something they've now been calling Zoom fatigue, okay? It's a real problem. Whether you're on Zoom or you're on Microsoft Teams or you're on WebEx, whatever it is, this screen fatigue is strong. And they don't seem to tie it with their phones, right? And my sons in particular don't tie it with their video games either, right? Their PlayStation games, no, that's different. Because for them, that's interactive. And they want some release, something fun. I don't know, my suggestion would be to try that, try something that's physically active. Depends on the age of your children, really. Mine are older, so they'll be like, yeah. You know, but I do ask them to come down and sit and eat with me and to leave their phones. Or if we have the phone there, then we're sharing funny videos or memes or things that we liked, doing it together. You know, maybe get involved in what they are doing. That also helps.
Yes, okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome and best of luck.
Sandy, can you go to the chat box? There is someone says, please answer my question. Can you see in the chat box?
I am scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And
okay, I can read
it to me, please.
You discussed some of the strategies to overcome negative thinking. How can we differentiate between negative and positive thought? It is a common practice to have bad negative feeling when circumstances are unfavorable.
Yes, it is. Exactly. For example, like I said, when my mother passed away, of course, it's normal. You're going through a difficult time and the grieving process is there. All right. Or you lose a job, or, you know, God forbid, you're in an accident or something horrible is happening. These things happen in our lives. I'm not saying never to have negative thoughts. They occur. It's about controlling them, right? If we have negative thoughts, you have to understand that they are going to affect us. They're going to affect us physically and they're going to affect us mentally, okay? And they will have an effect on our lives. The biggest problem comes when we allow those negative thoughts to overtake us, right? Those ants are the infestation. So we are just surrounded, you know, when you 1 or 2 or even 10 ants, maybe it's not a big deal, but then all of a sudden you've got a nest, right? You've got a nest of ants and there are hundreds or thousands of them and they're all over the place. That's an infestation. That's when they take over. And this is where the problems begin, right? This is where you have to stop somebody, like the friend that they were talking about earlier that believes they can't do anything right. That person is infested with ants. You have to recognize that certain circumstances are definitely going to cause negative thoughts, but they don't have to overwhelm us. They don't have to take over our lives, right? We do have the ability to control them, our own thoughts. We cannot always control our circumstances. We cannot control the weather. Many things in our life that we cannot control. But the biggest thing that we can control is our own thoughts and our own attitude. And they go together, right? Because our thoughts affect our attitudes and our attitude affects our thoughts. So the more you are working on fighting those automatic negative thoughts, then the better off you're going to be. Recognizing, yes, it's a very difficult time and it is sad and it is hard, but I can't allow this to take over my life. Do you see the difference?
Okay. Sandy, I think there is a request to share your address, email, your contact information.
Sure. My email.
You can write it in the chat box. And there is one question from the most awaited person. Okay, Silmi, I don't know. Silmi, could you hear us? I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly.
Yes.
Am I
Hi,
right?
can you hear me?
Yeah, Silmi. Yeah.
I just put my email to the chat.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for the insightful webinar. I just wanted to ask about one thing. Actually, I went through, a hard time, and I had to get some medication, to get through this. The problem is with my entourage. Okay, I'm not talking about my family because I'm living away from them, and so I had, some friends. So when they knew about the thing, they took it as if it was a default, though they know that we all go through difficult times in our lives. So which created me many issues, personal issues, and you cannot talk about it because you trust them at once, but later you found out that it was not really good, to trust people. So it created many issues, and really I'm stuck. I don't know how to deal with that. That's it. Thank you so much. Thanks in advance.
There is what I have found in my 30 years in Kuwait, almost 30 years now, there's a profound lack of understanding of psychological problems and mental issues in this region, not just Kuwait, but in the region. Yes. I find it sad because actually there's a lot in our Islamic history that's about it. But the fact is that most people think that when you have a problem or you need some kind of medication, if it's a heart problem, no problem. But if it's any kind of an emotional problem, then it's a big problem.
Yeah, it is anxiety, it's just anxiety. And I've already explained
honestly,
that.
My suggestion to you, I understand this completely, and I have worked with students with anxiety and students with learning disabilities who are dealing with this stigma. It's very, very hard. But again, you cannot control them, and you cannot control their thoughts. And the best thing that I have found is to say something like, all right, if you couldn't see well, wouldn't you go to a doctor and get glasses? Wouldn't you get tested and get glasses? Or if you couldn't hear well, wouldn't you go and get tested and maybe you need a hearing aid? Or if you have a broken leg, right? You would go to the doctor and get it fixed. There's no difference between that and the emotions.
Exactly.
These things happen. And,
yes, exactly.
Yes.
I'm sorry to tell you, but
allow them. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've already explained that, many times, and it's just simple issue, and we all, go through hard times. But the problem is that they are doing this on purpose. I can feel this sometimes, and I felt, desperate because as I told you, I tried to explain the whole thing many times, but I feel, in many, in many situations, they, even when you explain them, the whole thing, they try to make it recurrent, they repeat it many times as if they were doing this on purpose. So it started annoying me. So I feel
because you might be mind reading. All right, it may just be something that they are super uncomfortable with. It may be ignorance. Maybe try sharing an article with them about it. Maybe just bring up the fact that, hey, I thought you were my friends and that you were there to support me through these difficult times. Because these kinds of things they're not easy. And when you're dealing with like a stigma that's cultural, right? It becomes even more difficult. But at some point in time, my dear, you need to stop allowing them to affect you.
Yes.
Okay? You need to recognize that that is their thinking, and it may end up, if they cannot get to the point of understanding and working with you and helping you and being your friend, then maybe they really aren't good friends.
Yes.
Yes. I always feel that these things happen to us for a reason. Okay? That in my own belief, that God is testing us for a reason. And maybe it's to weed through these people that you thought were your friends and really aren't. Right? It could be. It could be.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And
and again, keep those mind reading ants away. Recognize them. Oh, they're doing that again. They must be thinking this. Unless they're actually saying it, unless they're telling you these things, then be careful. Yeah, be careful, because maybe they're not thinking that. And you might want to ask them, well, when they say something like that, ask them, well, what exactly do you mean by that? Are you telling me you think that I'm crazy? Are you my friend or you're not my friend? I'm sure.
No, the problem is that okay, as you've already mentioned, it's perhaps they're ignorant about the whole issue, but I don't know. Perhaps because I'm alone, because I don't have, many friends. I'm not surrounded by many people since I am abroad, away from my family. So I started thinking this way. When they find, in a weak state, so they add a lot of pressure, which is a bit annoying. But we need. I always say myself that I need to overcome the whole thing and focus on my objectives rather than, focus on what they have what they have already told. Yes.
If you focus on killing your own ants, recognizing them, challenging them, and killing your own ants, it will help you enormously. Continue with your medication. Leave them. Ignore what they're saying. Just say, okay, whatever. If you send them information and you explain and they're still refusing, I mean, we say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? Just like with our students, we can teach it to them, but if they are not willing to learn, I mean, there are some things you can try, but after a certain point, there isn't, it's up to them. And you have to protect yourself All right, and make sure that you are dealing with your own ants. And I think really once you get working on your own ants, that this is going to have an effect. You will improve, and they're going to see that. And it may have then a reciprocal effect on them, a positive reciprocal effect.
Okay, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks.
You can follow the chat box. Some people wrote something for you. You can follow the chat box, Silemi.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I would like to say thank you very much for everyone for joining us. This is a wonderful, amazing, informative session by Sandra Stein from American University of Kuwait, USA.
Stein.
Yeah, Stein. Okay.
Stein, yeah. It's actually a German name. Stein.
Thank you.
It means stone.
So, and please try to join us in the future webinar. Every Oman. Thank you very much, and we can clap to Sandra Stein.
Thank you. I'm clapping for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the very best of luck.
Please, you can. Guys, you can fill. Thank you very much. You can clap to.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Information I will share with Faisal. Did I give you my slides already or not? No.
You can send it by email to me, and then I will share everything with the. No worries.
Yeah, and I highly recommend Dr. Amon's book because I'm just touching the surface.
We share everything, the PowerPoint, the recording, even that we send the certificate of appreciation. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. Bye bye, guys. Clap.
Bye. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't you leave, guys. You need to leave. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Nice to meet you all.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much.
Hi, Miss Sandra.
Hi.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the lovely session. I'm so happy.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
You are
Aya.
very welcome.
So
glad you could make it.
Thank you, everyone. We would like to stay with you, but from the morning I'm at the university. I didn't go home. And the same with.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting lecture. Really relates to our.
Okay, guys, we need to enjoy our lunch, dinner.
Okay, guys. I put my email. I'll put my email one more time.
Okay. The chat will be open, Sandra. You can chat with them. Okay, no problem. But I'm going to close.
I need to go too because yeah, I haven't prayed my Dhuhr prayer. I ran from classes to this, so I kind of scarfed down some food really quick.
Me too. I need to go home now. It's around 4:20 in Oman.
It's your time. It's 3:18 here, and I have to run. I have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, me too. I'm running right now. Okay. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.